Hey, Mike.
Hello.
So thanks for joining us. This is our continuing coverage of Metaverse. If you don't haven't been following along, that's the basically the New York Comic Con virtual event that they're doing this weekend. We've been covering the Disney panels. There was five, six, or seven yesterday, and a bunch on Thursday, and today we had one. And so Mike covered that panel for us, and so it's all about Lost, right?
Yeah, so it is 10 years plus however many months since the series finale of Lost aired in May of 2010. And in celebration of that anniversary, showrunners Damon Lindeloff and Carlton Cuse appeared remotely to discuss the legacy of the show and take a bunch of questions that were pre-submitted, and the whole panel was pre-recorded, as all of the Metaverse panels were, about the show, and it was fine and interesting. But I think at this point those guys have like a list of things that they will say and that they won't say about the show, and this particular panel didn't really break any new ground as far as those things go. There were some cool, interesting tidbits that came out from this, but nothing like earth shattering that people are going to be like writing headlines about, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's a bit disappointing just because this was kind of the marketed as like one of the big marquee events, and not that we expected them to make a big announcement about Lost the Next Generation or something like
Yeah,
that. But
they did talk about that. One of the final questions actually was, will there be a Lost spin-off or a reboot? And they they said that they are all for it, but they don't want to be involved. They would support that happening if a new writer came along and pitched ABC or Disney a good idea. They think it's fertile ground for more stuff to happen in that world, but they would not want to do it. They feel like they told the story they wanted to tell, and they worked really hard to wrap up everything the way that they wanted to. So they don't want to personally be involved, but they have no problem with that story either continuing or being expanded upon in whatever way someone else deems appropriate.
when you think of, the first time I saw Lost was at Disney California Adventure. It was during ABC Primetime Preview Weekend, and at the AMC theaters they showed the first two episodes. What does Lost mean to you?
Lost is one of my personal favorite television shows ever to air, and I fully recognize and appreciate its flaws. And I think the creators do as well, which is cool and refreshing that they understand and get the frustrations that people had with the show and agree with a lot of them. Um, I think, to me, if I think about like my favorite moments in television, like if I listed my 25 favorite moments, like five of them would be from Lost. And it's probably in my top 10 like favorite shows ever. So I love it. Um, and I always enjoy hearing people talk about it, especially when they're people who are involved with the show. So something like this is always cool, and they don't do a lot of interviews like this. This is like every once in a while they'll talk about it, because Damon Lindeloff has gone on and created some really highly acclaimed shows like The Leftovers and the Watchmen show that just finished on HBO earlier this year. Carlton Cuse is involved with Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, and he did the Bates Motel show. So they're busy guys. They're not, they don't dwell in the past of their success on Lost. But I always like talking about it. I've talked about it with Rebecca Mosley, co-founder of Laughing Place, a bunch. She's a huge fan. Doobie's a big Lost fan. We've done some Lost trivia on Disney Trivia Live, and I think it's just a great show to like dissect and deep dive into. And this is kind of what this was about. And there were some good questions, and some of them were about like unanswered mysteries here and there, and some of them were about like what's your favorite obscure character and stuff like that. So um, I thought it was entertaining enough.
So you said some of your top five moments are from Lost. Like, what are your
Yeah.
favorite moments from Lost?
Well, my number one favorite moment from Lost is it's from an episode where John Locke and Ben Linus are walking through the forest, the jungle together, and they go and find Jacob's cabin in the middle of the jungle, and it's this really creepy like old abandoned cabin, and they go in there and um at first like nothing happens, and Locke is like, what is this, there's nobody here, because Jacob, they keep talking about Jacob as this like weird mysterious leader of the others, and then like everything goes crazy, and stuff starts flying all over the place, and you see this like mysterious shadowy figure sitting in a chair and stuff, and that just really like encapsulated what I love about Lost, and how creepy it could be at certain points, the and it really like inspired a lot of conversation when it was airing, and I loved that about it, and how involved the fans were in trying to like decipher all the mysteries. And another favorite moment is the blast door map that dropped down in the Swan Station hatch, and it basically became like this Rosetta Stone for deciphering all the mysteries of the show, and people spent months figuring out what every little thing meant on that map, and just stuff like that really really appeals to me very specifically. And I think that Damon Lindelof is very interested in that kind of mystery storytelling, and the mystery, the resolutions to the mysteries weren't always 100% satisfying, but to me it was the thought that it provoked was the interesting part of it from the outset.
Now, Lost is sort of famous for having a controversial ending.
Yeah.
What did you think?
So the final season of Lost is my least favorite season overall, because they employed this device they called the flash sideways, because the first like 3 seasons or so they were doing these flashbacks to give us like all the characters' backstories. Then they started doing flash forwards to the characters' time after they left the island and stuff. And then for the final season, they did these flash sideways, which initially were kind of told, they were portrayed as like an alternate universe where the Oceanic Flight 815 never crashed on the island, and they were all like living in LA, but weird stuff was still happening that kind of tied into the island and stuff. But then at the very end of the show, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, it turned out that the flash sideways was actually all these characters living in the afterlife, kind of like in limbo or purgatory, after they had all died, and then they're all like reunite and like ascend to the next plane at the very end of the show. And I just thought that was such like a supreme waste of time to me, that I just don't care what happened to these characters in the afterlife. Like, it just seemed like beside the point in this weird way. I don't know. So that always bugged me. But the finale itself, I thought was pretty good. Other than that, I think the finale is fairly satisfying.
What's your favorite unanswered mystery?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Well, that's one of the things they talked about a lot in this panel, was that they try to be pretty open when people ask them about unanswered mysteries on Lost. They try to either answer it outright or point people along the path where they can go and revisit the show or some of the ancillary materials that had come out to figure out what the answer was that was provided. But there was one thing that they had decided that they're never going to answer, and that was during the time travel season 5. Some of the main characters are in a boat, an outrigger boat, paddling along the shore of the island, and they see another outrigger. I think that the people on that other boat start shooting at them and stuff, and it's never answered in the show, like who was on that other boat. And that's like one of the things that they get answered the most frequently, but it's the thing that they've decided they're never going to answer. I don't really care about that one. I'll give you my answer, which is how the Dharma Initiative first became involved with the island. And there's little hints and connections that they've provided that answer that partially, but I would really like to see, I always thought it would be cool to do like a spin-off or even like a comic book series or something, or like a novel where they just cover the Dharma Initiative's history and its relationship with the island, because we saw part of that in the middle and part of that at the end, how they all got wiped out in the Purge and stuff, but we never really got the beginning of that story. So that's the one that I would like to see explored further.
Did you do any of the like, sort of ancillary stuff? Like I know
Yeah.
there's like Lost University. There's some bonus features on DVDs. Were you
Yeah.
like that into it?
I was really, really into Lost when it was airing, and yes, I read the novel. I have it here somewhere. One moment. So there's this novel called Bad Twin, and it is a tie-in to Lost. In fact, in the series Lost, the characters find the manuscript to this book, which was written by this character Gary Troop, which is an anagram for purgatory, and they read it on the island because he was a passenger who died in the crash. But then they published the fictional book from within the show, and it was supposed to give you like little clues to some of the mysteries and some thematic tie-ins and stuff.
Doesn't it essentially spoil the finale then?
I guess it does in a way, yes. But I guess that was, a lot of people thought, okay, the island is purgatory, which turned out not to be the case. But it did turn out that Flash Sideways universe was purgatory.
So what is the island?
The island is kind of like this stopgap between the world of the supernatural and the real world. They use that metaphor of the cork in the bottle, and it's the thing like preventing all of evil to like spill out into the world, for better or worse. I think that's the answer to that question.
I guess it kind of makes you want to have like a island origin story. Maybe it's best not answered, but at the same time, it's like a random island that is suddenly, But because they also did that like extra bonus feature on the last season DVD that kind of like wrapped up a lot of the unanswered questions.
Yeah, I like that. That's like a 12-minute short film called The New Man in Charge, and it stars Hurley and Ben, who are the two characters who basically stay on the island at the end. And Hurley's like the new caretaker of the island at the very end of the series. So this explores how Hurley and Ben like travel to the mainland and go and get Walt, who's I guess another character who was supposed to have ended up on the island but didn't. So they went to get Walt and retrieve him, and then Ben also goes and like stops those guys from sending the pallet drops of all the food to the island, the Dharma Initiative guys who are still doing that. So it does clean up a few of the loose threads in a fun way, I thought.
Any final thoughts?
No, I don't know. I would recommend watching through if you're a Lost fan, I would watch through the video. I put up a recap. I basically recapped every question that got asked and what their answer was in brief. And there are a few fun tidbits. Let me see if there's one that sticks out to me. They talked about the history of the character of Ben and how he wasn't intended to be a regular on the show, but they loved actor Michael Emerson so much that he became the leader of the others, which they had talked about that a bunch before. They talked about the Nikki and Paolo debacle and how that wrapped up, and how Expose is one of Damon Lindelof's favorite episodes. Did you know the character of Carlton on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was named after Carlton Cuse? I think I learned that from this panel.
No, how did that happen?
I guess he was friends with the creators or showrunners of that series.
Oh, wow. So he's older than I thought.
Yeah. The other question they wouldn't answer is if one of the others was Amelia Earhart, which I had heard that theory before, and they didn't say definitively whether it was yes or no. Yeah. So they talked about Star Wars, actually, because one of the questions was whether Hurley would leave the island to go see the new Star Wars movies as they were coming out, because he's a big Star Wars fan. And Damon Lindeloff said that he wouldn't have to because he's got connections. But he also thought it was hurting his brain because J.J. Abrams obviously co-created Lost and made some of these new Star Wars movies. So, yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. So we got more coming tomorrow. You covering anything?
What We Do in the Shadows tomorrow.
Okay. For some reason, I'm covering Animaniacs. And then we'll be back. We'll do a wrap-up show at 2:00, talking about all that. All of that for Metaverse. So thanks so much, Mike.
Thanks. I'm going to go back and play some more Star Wars Squadrons.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
Good. I think I'm more than halfway through the story mode, single player mode.
Okay.
So it's fun. I shot a lot of ships down out of the sky, out of the
Good for you. I'm very proud of you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much, Mike. Talk to you later.
Bye.